If I'm identified with my dualistic self, in other words, Dennis Merzel or Genpo, whatever, if I'm identified with this dualistic self, of course I'm going to be very attached to myself. And the more I've invested in creating myself and building myself up and building who I am up as a persona, as a person, the bigger investment I have, I'm not going to let that go. I'm not going to just drop that, because there's a tremendous amount of fear, obviously, to drop the self. So I'm going to say I'm pursuing enlightenment, and at the very same moment, I'm going to be clinging with all my might and strength to myself. So if I'm identified with this self, like if you're identified as Iain, okay, and I speak to Iain and you talk to me, and then I say, all right, let me speak to the dualistic mind, okay, and that dualistic mind is the one that knows itself as Iain. Okay, so speak to me as the dualistic mind, and why are you called the dualistic mind? What do you do that's so dualistic?
You're asking me the question now.
Yeah.
What am I doing? I'm dualistic because I can see things that can be done on the outside and they're separate from me, and I can influence things on the outside. Like in this interview, I have a degree of control because I ask questions, to keep an eye on the time because we have a time limit. I'm doing my best to make it as interesting as we can, for people that are going to watch it.
Right. And obviously, if I was to say, I am you and you are me, from the dualistic mind, that would seem like what?
If I am you and you are me, that makes a lot of sense, because I already feel there is a synergy happening. We're building something together, and there's a field.
Right.
I detect a field happening. So for me, it's already moved away from me, the guy asking the questions, and you, the guy sitting there answering them. And there's something happening, yes.
Okay. But it's still happening with you and me. There's still a sense of me and you. The dualistic mind obviously always sees self and other. Not self and other, but self and other.
That's correct.
The world and me.
That's correct.
And I'm coming from me. Now, if I were to ask you for your permission to allow me to speak to the non-dualistic mind right now, would you allow me to speak to the non-dual mind for a moment? So you now are, and you just have to repeat it.
I am now
the
non-dualistic mind.
All right, so now just experience what it is in this moment to admit that you are now the non-dual mind. Just be with it for a moment. What is it to be the non-dual?
Well, the first feeling is relief, actually. And there's a certain feeling of spaciousness. And there's a feeling of connectedness and a relaxation. And I'm not so fixed on the clock and trying to get into the
That's right.
the time we've got left. So there's I would say simply a relaxation.
Okay. Now, as the non-dual mind, right now, where's the self? Can you find it?
Yeah, I can. It's moved back, but it's there. Yeah.
Okay, look at it.
Yeah.
And tell me what you see. Is it...
But aren't I then go back into dualism?
No. Just look at it. Just observe it.
It's quite small, and it is quite cooperative, actually, and a little bit meek, and the more I look at it, the more it's getting hard to find, actually. It's there somewhere, yeah.
It's there somewhere.
Yeah.
As what?
It's there as an identity. Yeah.
As a concept, as an identity.
Yeah.
So what are you experiencing in this moment? Just give yourself a chance to experience what it is to be the non-dual, the no-self.
Well, I find it enjoyable. I find it It's actually quite natural.
Yeah. It's also called natural
Yeah.
state of
Yes,
mind.
it is. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or original
Yeah.
state
Yeah.
of mind.
Yeah.
Our original heart, original mind. So this is the leap to the other track, or the other rail, I should say. Okay? This is the leap to the non-dual. In this place, what about time and space?
They're there, but they're less important.
Okay. When you're completely here, it's beyond time and space.
Well, actually, I have had that experience.
Yes.
In my own way, I understand
Right.
that.
Right. Right. It's a little hard when
Yeah.
you're doing an interview. I've done this before with interviewers, and it's a little tough
Yeah.
to do it because you're on the spot, because you have to keep control and you have to watch the clock and you have to be aware of the
Yeah.
audience. But that's right. So if we think of these two rails, okay, now we put a train that's on both rails on the whole track. To me, I call this the apex. So you've got the dualistic, you've got the non-dualistic, and then over here at the apex, which includes the dual and the non-dual, okay?
Yes.
And transcends them both, you have what I call the integrated, free-functioning human being. In other words, you've got the human being. So you've got the human side, okay, and that's the dual. You've got the being side, that's the non-dual. So the human side is the doer, it's always doing. The being is just being. In other words, we're resting in our beingness. It's total nirvana, it's total peace. But this, we don't want to get stuck there either. So you were talking about the 5 stages. So the third stage is when we get stuck. Yeah, go
Don't
ahead.
forget the second stage. 'Cause
Yeah, I'm going to come back to
you
it.
are,
I'll
okay.
come back to it. So the third stage is actually experiencing the non-dual. And then the 5th stage, and I'll come back and fill it in, is actually the integrated free functioning. So the second stage is a process where we surrender and we submit to life. So once we have this experience, this opening, this Kensho experience or Satori experience, we realize it has to be a practice. There's a practice that comes in here. If we want to stabilize, if we want to integrate this enlightenment into our life, if we want it to become meaningful, if we want it to become life-changing, life transformative, we have to do a practice. We have to do something. That's when I began to meditate on a daily basis.
Yeah, so we start with a reference point, which is very important.
That's right.
Because otherwise we don't really know, I was going to say, where we're contained. That isn't quite right, but there's no holding, if you like. You have to have
and
this
we don't know where
reference
we're
point.
going.
Yeah.